Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Prayers by King Kunti, Text 12. Tarye Vata Muni Shrestha Pandava Pancha Sayakan Atmano Bimukhan Dipan Alakshastran Yad Upadadu Tarye Vata Muni Shrestha Pandava Pancha Sayakan Atmano Bimukhan Dipan Alakshastran Yad Upadadu Tarye Vata Muni Shrestha Pandava Pancha Sayakan Atmano Bimukhan Dipan Alakshastran Upadadu Tarye Vata Muni Shrestha Panchava Panchakasayakan Atmano Bimukhan Dipan Alakshastran Upadadu. Ladies. Tarye Vata Muni Shrestha Pandava Panchasayakan Atmano Bimukhan Dipan Alakshastran Upadadu. Tarhi, then, Eva, also, Ata, therefore, Muni Shrestha, O chief among the Munis, Pandava, all the sons of Pandu, Pancha, 5, Sayakan, weapons, Atmanaha, own selves, Abhimukhan, towards, Deeptan, glaring, Alaksha, sing it, Astrani, weapons, Upadadu, took up. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Oh, okay. O foremost amongst the great thinkers, Munis, Shaunika, seeing the glaring Brahmastra proceeding toward them, the Pandavas took up their 5 respective weapons. Purport. The Brahmastra is the finer than nuclear weapons. Ashwatthama discharged the Brahmastra simply to kill the Pandavas, namely the 5 brothers headed by Maharaj Yudhisthira, and their only grandson, who was lying within the womb of Uttara. Therefore, the Brahmastra, more effective and finer than the atomic weapons, was not as blind as the atomic bombs. When the atomic bombs are discharged, they do not discriminate between the target and others. Mainly, the atomic bombs do harm to the innocent because there is no control. The Brahmastra is not like that. It marks out the target and proceeds accordingly without harming the innocent. Text 13. The Almighty Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, having observed that a great danger was befalling his unalloyed devotees, who were fully surrendered souls, at the time took up his Sudarshan disc to protect them. Purport. The Brahmastra, the supreme weapon released by Ashwatthama, was something similar to the nuclear weapon, but with more radiation and heat. This Brahmastra is a product of a more subtle science. Being the product of a finer sound, a mantra recorded in the Vedas. Period. Another advantage of this weapon is that it is not blind like the nuclear weapon, because it can be directed only to the target and nothing else. Ashwatthama released the weapon just to finish all the male members of the Pandavas family. Therefore, in one sense, it was more dangerous than the atomic bombs, because it could penetrate even the most protected place and would never miss the target. Knowing all this, Lord Sri Krishna at once took up his personal weapon to protect his devotees, but did not know anyone other than Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has clearly promised that his devotees are never to be vanquished, and he behaves according to the quality or degree of the developed devotional service rendered by his devotees. Here the word Ananya Vishayatmanam is significant. The Pandavas were 10% dependent on the protection of the Lord, although they were all great warriors themselves. But the Lord neglects even the greatest warriors and also vanquished them in no time. When the Lord saw that there is no time for the Pandavas to counteract the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama, he took up his weapon even at the risk of breaking his own vow. Although the battlefield of Kurukshetra was almost finished, still according to his vow, he should not have taken up his own weapon. But the emergency was more important than the vow. He is better known as Bhaktavatsala, or a lover of his devotees, and thus he prepared to continue as Bhaktavatsala than to be a worldly moralist who never breaks his solemn vow. What's significant here is that to be a devotee doesn't mean simply to change one's dress or one's address. Devotee means 100% surrendered to Krishna. Other than that, we're aspiring to become devotees. And the process of sadhana bhakti is the process by which we can gradually come to the platform of feeling some devotion towards Krishna. It's not only the activities we're doing, but it's also the feeling. If we just do activities without any feeling, there's not much devotion, obviously. Happy marriages are not everyone in the marriage, the husband and wife just doing things, is also something about feeling. If it's only doing and there's no feeling, then it's not going to be a very happy marriage. If there's only feeling but there's no doing, it won't be a very nice marriage either. If they just sit around and they never do anything but say, I love you, the marriage is not going to last very long. And if they simply do things and they never have any relationship or feeling, then it's a pretty dry relationship. Even your cat or your dog will have a better relationship with. Apparently, at least. So, Krishna ye tamam prapadente tam sataiva bhajamyaham. As we surrender to Krishna, then Krishna reciprocates with us. Luckily, no one's probably going to throw a Brahmastra at us, so we don't have to hope that Krishna picks up his Sudarshan chakra to protect us. We have smaller problems. Or as one devotee said, Srila Prabhupada, I'm a little devotee, but I have a big problem. And Prabhupada said, how can a little devotee have a big problem? If you're a little devotee, you can only have a little problem. So luckily because we're little devotees, we don't have comparatively little problems compared to what the Pandavas. But because the Pandavas were 10% devotees of Krishna, therefore Krishna 10% protected them. And then how would we know if we're purely devotees of Krishna? Well, if we were, we'd never forget Krishna even for a moment. Even before the stage when we were actually spontaneously feeling for Krishna, even at the stage of asakti, we can't forget Krishna. So if we forget Krishna regularly, or most of the time, then we can think ourselves to be great devotees, but we have to recognize that we're on the path to becoming devotees of Krishna. And one day developing not only awareness of Krishna, but actually transcendental, spontaneous, loving feelings towards him. In the meantime, we can see the Pandavas and see how they were protected by Krishna, how Krishna protects the inhabitants of Vrindavan by lifting Govardhan Hill, how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu protected Lord Nityananda with his Sudarshan disc. So, we have to rely on Krishna's protection, but at the same time we have to become Krishna conscious. Just like Draupadi, she tried to protect her robe, her sari, with her own hand, although Dushasan was a very strong Kshatriya. One hand she was calling for Krishna, one hand she was holding her sari, and nothing, and Dushasan seemed to be victorious, till Draupadi put up both hands, Hey Govinda, and then Krishna protected her completely. So we have to learn how to rely upon Krishna, and that takes some practice. But we should know when we're chanting Hare Krishna, if our mind is wandering somewhere, we're being defeated by the illusory energy. Therefore we have to come back and take shelter of Krishna. And if it goes away, again we have to realize we're being defeated by the illusory energy and bring it back into Krishna consciousness. And then gradually we'll make progress like that, by practice. It's like if you want to build a muscle, you have to practice. You can't think, well, one day I'll lift some weights and the muscles will just spontaneously manifest themselves. You have to do it every day, and then gradually the strength will come. So, text 14, the Lord of Supreme Mysticism, Sri Krishna resides within everyone's heart as the Paramatma. As such, that to protect the progeny of the Kuru dynasty, he covered the embryo of Uttara by his personal energy. Purport, the Lord of the Supreme Mysticism can simultaneously reside within everyone's heart, or even within the atoms, by his Paramatma feature, his plenary portion. Therefore, from within the body of Uttara, he covered the embryo to save Maharaj Parikshit and protect the progeny of Maharaj Kuru, of whom King Pandu was also a descendant. Both the sons of Dhritarashtra and those of the Pandu belonged to the same dynasty of Maharaj Kuru. Therefore, both of them were generally known as Kurus. But when there were differences between the two families, the sons of Dhritarashtra were known as Kurus, or the sons of Pandu were known as Pandavas. Since the sons and the grandsons of Dhritarashtra were all killed in the battle of Kurukshetra, the last son of the dynasty is designated as the son of the Kurus. Text 15. O Shonaka, although the supreme Brahmastra weapon released by Ashwatthama was irresistible and without check or counteraction, it was neutralized and foiled when confronted by the strength of the Vishnu, Lord Krishna. Purport in the Bhagavad Gita said that Brahmajyoti, the glowing transcendental effulgence, was resting on Lord Sri Krishna. In other words, the glowing effulgence known as Brahma Tejas is nothing but the rays of the Lord, just as the sun rays are the rays of the sun disk. So this Brahma weapon also, although materially irresistible, cannot surpass the supreme strength of the Lord. The weapon called Brahmastra, released by Ashwatthama, was neutralized and foiled by Lord Sri Krishna by his own energy. That is to say, he did not wait for any other help, because he is absolute. O Brahmanas, do not think this be especially wonderful in the activities of the mysterious and infallible personality of Godhead. By his own transcendental energy, he maintains and annihilates all material things, although he himself is unborn. Purport. The activities of the Lord are always inconceivable to the tiny brain of the living entities. Nothing is impossible for the Supreme Lord, but all his actions are wonderful for us. Thus he is always beyond the range of our conceivable limits. The Lord is all-powerful, all-perfect personality of Godhead. The Lord is 10% perfect, whereas others, namely Narayan, Brahma, Shiva, and the demigods, and all the living beings possess only different percentages of such perfection. No one is equal to or greater than him. He is unrivaled. Thus saved from the radiation of the Brahmastra, Kunti, the chaste devotee of the Lord, and her 5 sons and Draupadi addressed Lord Krishna as he started for home. So now we start the prayers by Queen Kunti. Purport: Kunti is described here as a sati or chaste due to her unalloyed devotion to Lord Sri Krishna. Our mind will now be expressed in the following prayers for Lord Krishna. The chaste devotee of the Lord does not look to others, namely to any other living being or demigod, even for deliverance from danger. That was all along the characteristic of the whole family of the Pandavas. They knew nothing except Krishna, and therefore the Lord was always ready to help them in all respects and in all circumstances. That is the transcendental nature of the Lord. He reciprocates the dependence of the devotee. One should not therefore look for help from imperfect living beings or demigods, but one should look for all help from Lord Krishna, who is competent to save his devotees. Such a chaste devotee can never ask the Lord for help. The Lord, out of his own accord, is always anxious to render it. Text 18. Kunti uvacha namasye purusham tvayam ishvaram prakate puram alaksham sarabhutanam antarabahira avashtitam. Translation: Srimati Kunti said, "O Krishna, I offer my obeisance unto you because you are the original personality and are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You are existing both within and without everything, yet you are invisible to all." Purport: Srimati Kunti Devi was quite aware that Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, although he was playing the part of her nephew. Such an enlightened lady could not commit a mistake by offering obeisances unto her nephew. Therefore he addressed him as the original Purusha beyond the material cosmos. Although all living entities are also transcendental, they are neither original nor infallible. Living entities are apt to fall down under the clutches of material nature, but the Lord is never like that. In the Vedas, therefore, he is described as the chief among all living entities. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam. Then again, he is addressed as Ishvara, or the controller. The living entities, or the demigods like Chandra and Surya, are also to some extent Ishvara, but none of them is a supreme Ishvara, or the ultimate controller. He is the Parameshvara, or the Supersoul. He is both within and without. Although he is present before Srimati Kunti as her nephew, he was also within her and everyone else. In the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, the Lord says, "I am situated in everyone's heart, and only due to me one remembers, forgets, and is cognizant," etc. Through all the Vedas, I am to be known because I am the compiler of the Vedas, and I am the teacher of the Vedanta. Queen Kunti affirms that the Lord, although both within and without all living beings, is still invisible. The Lord is, so to speak, a puzzle for the common man. Queen Kunti experienced personally that Lord Krishna was present before her, yet he entered within the womb of Uttara to save her embryo from the attack of Ashwatthama's Brahmastra. Kunti herself was puzzled about whether Sri Krishna is all-pervasive or localized. In fact, he is both. But he reserves the right of not being exposed to persons who are not surrendered souls. This checking curtain is called the Maya energy of the Supreme Lord, and it controls a limited version of the rebellious soul. It is explained as follows. Interesting that Queen Kunti, she's offering prayers to Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. in the list of different devotees in parental love and the nectar of instruction, nectar of devotion, Queen Kunti is also listed, but her parental love for Krishna is not on the same level as Yasoda Mayi or Nanda Maharaj or even Vasudeva, because she's quite aware of Krishna's opulence. The devotees in Goloka Vrindavan never think that Krishna is all-pervading. They think he's just an ordinary cowherd boy. And even sometimes the gopis, they mention that in their prayers that Krishna's, or in their talking, that Krishna is Paramatma. They don't pray to Krishna like the other devotees do. They just joke, you might be God, you may be Paramatma, but as far as we know, that you're just ordinary cowherd boy. Because their love for Krishna is so overwhelming to them, they never consider Krishna as something other than an ordinary cowherd boy. Otherwise, if they did, their unalloyed, uninterrupted, all-pervasive love for Krishna would be disturbed. Generally speaking, we meet someone very important, there's a certain amount of reverence, and intimacy will not be there. So if the wife of the president greets the president always with awe and reverence, there wouldn't be much of a relationship as husband and wife. So someone may be a big president of a country, but still he's being controlled by his wife. Or in this age, sometimes they're controlled by their dog. Prabhupada gives the example that there was a big prime minister of England, and someone had an appointment to see him. And the secretary said, just wait outside, he'll be with you in a moment. So 1 hour went by, and the prime minister of England at that time, when England was a more powerful country than it is now, ruling the world, practically speaking, the man was still waiting for an hour, so he wanted to see what the prime minister, what he was doing that was so important. So he peeked into the prime minister's office, and he discovered that the prime minister was on all fours, his hands and legs, and on his back was his grandson. And his grandson was riding him around the room, saying, "Giddy up, horsey, giddy up, horsey," as if the prime minister was a horse, and his grandson was riding him around. So that's called love. Similarly, one may be a big man in society, but if the dog has to go out for a walk, then the big man has to take the dog out, or else there'll be a mess. So love is more important than knowledge. As a matter of fact, if we know too much, then generally we become too familiar, and the awe and reverence we have to someone, well, even the affection we have for someone is diminished. So, if you have a relationship with someone and you're looking at them all the time, wondering, well, what's that dot on your forehead? It kind of interferes with the relationship. I don't know if I should associate with you. I look at that dot on the forehead. Someone has to overlook these things. That's called, in the material world, it's illusion. Matter of fact, you have to overlook a lot of things in the material world. Otherwise, the relationship can, well, that's what the illusory energy is for, is to make sure that we don't see the faults until a couple of years later, all the faults. Then suddenly all these faults appear as if they weren't there before. So familiarity breeds contempt, namely because we examine things too carefully. And then we discover things that we're not exactly appreciative of. Therefore, unless one sees things from the spiritual platform, there can be no lasting relationship on any platform. But the souls, although they may be very small when they're conditioned, but they're manifestations of Krishna's energy, and therefore it says in the Brahma Samhita that they were all enjoyable and tasty. And what to speak of the Supreme Person, who's unlimitedly enjoyable and tasty. Therefore, as long as we stay in the light of Krishna consciousness, then there's no possibility of one's becoming completely tired of dealing with Krishna. As Narada Muni asked Krishna asked Narada Muni, I want to give you a benediction. So Narada Muni's benediction that he asked for was, may your pastimes be always fresh and more blissful. May devotional service always be more encouraging and ever fresh. So Krishna said, what kind of benediction is this? This is the eternal truth. What kind of, it's already there. It's already a fact. But of course, even in Radha Krishna's pastimes, there's times when Srimati Radharani is waiting for Krishna, and Krishna doesn't show up on time or at all. And Srimati Radharani becomes angry, won't speak to Krishna, in order to make the relationship fresh again. So a little bit of separation, a little bit of dispute sometimes, and then they make up. It makes the relationship ever fresh, just like adding a little salt to the water to keep the water fresh. So it goes on eternally in the spiritual world. So if you think people fight here, well, the spiritual world, Radha and Krishna fight too. Sometimes, not usually though. Sometimes, just to keep the relationship fresh. You don't have to worry about going there and seeing your worst enemy in the Hare Krishna movement there also. I remember you. This spiritual world is not big enough for the two of us. It's either you or me. No, it's not like that in the spiritual world. Even there's some disagreement, but it's not on the same level. I mean, Chandravali is a rival for Srimati Radharani, but also keeps the relationship fresh. If there is no competition, then there's no impetus to make any advancement. There would be no impetus for anyone, because the whole advancement is relationship and loving experiences with each other. So if there is no competition, then the Manjaris, when they're decorating Srimati Radharani, wouldn't be anxious that they make Srimati Radharani even more beautiful today than she was yesterday, so they can win the competition against Chandravali and her assistants, who are always competing to make Chandravali more prominent than Srimati Radharani. That way Krishna enjoys ever more, and the devotees enjoy ever more trying to please Krishna. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? So, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, some of his disciples came to him and said, I don't feel like we're making very much progress. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada said, do you really feel like that? So they said, yes. I said, that's very good. Of course, we should try to make progress, not that we just feel it. No, we should try to make, but if we don't feel like we're making, then it's an impetus to try it harder. It should be an impetus. And by trying harder, that's how we make our progress. And we think, I made so much progress, I'm there, No, then we don't go anywhere. So in the spiritual world, everyone feels themselves inadequate. So we feel inadequate here, and that induces us and inspires us to make more progress. Then we'll make more progress. We feel I'm completely okay, everything's fine, prasadam's good, Sunday it's pizza. What the heck? Then we don't go anywhere. So that's why the material energy is always making us feel like we're inadequate or despondent, because it's trying to induce us to make a next step forward, because without doing that, we can't get out of Krishna's Maya, which is always putting us in illusion and separating us from Krishna, which is the real reason why we feel depressed and despondent, because we're separated from Krishna. And nothing else in the material world, although we may imagine it, can make us feel happy But ultimately everything will dissatisfy us eventually. Unless Krishna is in the center. Prabhupada gives the example of the child being put from one mother to the next until finally the child comes back to its original mother, and then it feels satisfied and happy again. So without being in Krishna's arms, we'll never be happy and satisfied. Any questions, comments? Okay. Kvala, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.